Live from TheEoNProject Studios, perched high atop the banks of the majestic Blackstone River. Greetings from the jewel of the Blackstone Valley. You're listening to Experts of Nothing with Mike and Jay. Hey, Mike.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. How's it going? I haven't seen your face in
I know.
some time.
We've had a little bit of a delay.
We have had a delay
in the production of the program, which I know is meeting with some horrible anticipation by our fans.
I know. I've received many a message asking when the Eon Project is coming back because their lives are unfulfilled without the show.
They lack something. A je ne sais quoi.
Oh, you French too?
You will. I am French. I don't speak anything of the language except for a few tidbits of useless.
You know, I thought I was French too until I took 2 separate DNA tests, which said I'm
we should talk about
French.
On a future show. We should talk about DNA, the mysteries of DNA, what it all means.
Spreading DNA across the world.
Yeah, they call it seeding.
Yeah.
Alien seeding. There's an alien seeding theory that the Earth. You ever hear this?
I have.
That the Earth
I subscribe to that theory.
The Earth is actually populated by seeds of DNA from other words. Like they send out these.
Well, let's not get too into it, but yeah, we'll talk about that on a future show.
And the reason I mentioned it is because we did get a bevy. You know what a bevy is? Like
a group of things?
Yeah, a bevy of new followers, including some folks who are really into the alien thing.
You know, we've actually had followers across the world popping up everywhere.
Yeah,
because we can check that via the podcast site.
We do surveillance on them.
It's pretty scary how they can pinpoint where people are.
I wonder if it could be so minute in detail as to tell if they're in the bathroom listening to us, which I think would be really interesting.
That would be cool. But, you know, there is an app. I can't remember the name of it now. I heard about it a few years ago. It's basically like a bathroom. Whenever you go to the bathroom, like when you're going number 2, you click on this app, and what it does is it shows people all around the world that are going number 2 at the very same time you are.
How does it know?
Well, because everybody has the app.
Oh, so you just click. You know what, though? People would lie. People would lie. Because you know what? You'd find some guy in Mexico who said he's been to the bathroom 37 times
you could chat with somebody who's going to the bathroom the same time you are.
To see if you have shared experiences.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. But anyway, the reason we went on a bit of a hiatus. Mike and I actually both went on a couple of adventures separately.
Your adventures were better than my adventures.
Yeah, I had an adventure. So going back a few weeks ago, I don't know if anybody remembers, but we talked about the Die Glocke, which is the German super weapon.
That's right.
That was a listener request by a listener called 51 Pan Man. That's what he goes by.
Oh, we talked about 51 Pan Man before.
We did. Well, 51 Pan Man went ahead and contacted me yet again.
Oh.
And he asked me to go on a bit of an adventure with him.
You met one of our listeners in person?
I did. I met 2 listeners, but we'll go to 51 Pan Man first.
Okay, cool.
So, being the spontaneous and I live an exciting life.
Yeah.
I decided to take 51 Pan Man up on his offer.
Hopefully you brought some sort of protection.
And I found out that he lives in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted a picture of him recently on our Facebook page.
Oh.
He allowed me to do that. So I went out to visit 51 Pan Man in God's country.
God's country.
Indiana. I don't know if you've
God
ever been
own
there.
all the countries?
He does, but I don't know. There's something about being out in the plains.
You know what's funny? I've never been to Indiana. I've been to many, many states, but I've not been to Indiana.
It's very flat, a lot of corn.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So anyway, I went to go visit him, and there were a lot of paranormal, I don't want to say events that took place, but a lot of paranormal situations, things that we discussed while we were out there.
So it's rich in paranormalities.
That's correct. So it inspired me to talk about my topic for the day today.
All right, which is going to be?
It's going to be something called the Monroe House, which is a super haunted, supposedly haunted structure in a city called Hartford City, which is in Indiana, which is not far from where I visited 51 Pan Man.
Oh, not the James Monroe, not James Monroe, the former president.
No, not the creator of the Monroe Doctrine.
Yes.
No. And Monrovia, the capital of Liberia.
We won't talk about the Monroe Doctrine today because that will bore everybody to tears.
I didn't get a chance to go in the Monroe House, but I get to go by the Monroe House.
Mm-hmm. Now the Monroe, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the Monroe House is a famous location for supposed paranormal activity, correct?
That is correct. Yes, going back, it has a history of extreme paranormal events going back many, many years, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about what our own personal beliefs are that we may think is causing some of these issues that are going on in the home.
Interesting.
So to follow up with that, as I stated earlier, I did meet another listener. Mm-hmm. I did meet WC as well.
Oh, the famous enigmatic WC.
I did. And, we had a good conversation because remember how we were talking about ASMR a few weeks ago?
Yes.
And you told me you would never try it?
Yeah, I think I did say that.
So WC told me he tried it, and now he's hooked on it. He loves it.
He does.
Puts it on. He listens to Maria.
Now that's the again, for those of you who didn't catch that show, that's when you, it's like a YouTube thing where you listen in and people just talk, and it supposedly relaxes you.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
But they do various things, role playing kind of things.
Again, this is a family show.
But you put the headphones on, it makes the experience that much more fulfilling.
You don't find that creepy? Like it's somebody in the room with you?
No. You'd be surprised. You have to try it.
I don't know, man.
I'm telling you. Anyway. So WC, he's quite the character as well.
So you met two of our listeners. You went on some adventures, and we're going to talk about them today.
I did, and the most scary and paranormal event that occurred while I was gone, while I was out there, was visiting an Indiana chicken farm.
Okay.
And let me tell you about this. So we live in Rhode Island, which is a small state.
Well, you live in Rhode Island. I live in
Massachusetts. Oh, yeah. Well, we live nearby.
Yes.
People in this area have never seen a chicken farm that you've seen when you go out to the Midwest.
That's correct. I've never seen a chicken farm.
There was a building that I was able to take a peek inside of. It was quite interesting. It was a giant, I can't even call it a chicken coop, because it was so huge. There were 100,000 chickens in this chicken building.
Wow.
And there's 4 of them on this property.
Wow.
3 or 4 of them. That's a lot of chickens.
What are the chickens doing in the building?
They're in poultry purgatory, essentially.
Oh.
They're all just in these individual little dividers.
That's sad.
And all they do is lay eggs all day.
That's sad.
But you go in there and they cluck at you and they're staring at you.
Well, they're probably thinking you're coming for them.
And the farmhand every day has to go in there and he has to scoop out any dead chickens that may be
I was going to say there's probably a lot
in there.
So that's a great job. What are you? You're like the chicken caretaker.
He cares for the chickens. He makes sure the eggs are all within specs.
No, when I say caretaker, I mean like the mortician. Like
that too.
You got to pull out the
That's
dead
correct. Yeah, they have a chicken funeral.
Oh, I need to discuss something with you later with regards to morticians and an experience that I had just yesterday with a man who's straight out of central casting for a mortician or a horror movie character.
Okay.
We can talk about that later. It was frightening. My children were frightened. I was frightened. I had to flee the area. So we'll talk about that later.
That sounds kind of scary. So let's get into the topic. So before we keep people waiting too long.
Yes.
And a special guest, 51 Panman, will be coming on today.
What?
Hopefully.
All right.
I'm supposed to call him here very shortly and get him on the line.
Oh.
And we're going to do a quick interview. And the reason I'm doing that is because along with the Monroe House, there's another scary Indiana residence that's not known to many. It's called Grandma Betty's house.
Ooh, that sounds like a fun place to go.
And Grandma Betty is a relative of 51 Panman, and she's since passed on, God rest her soul. But she lived in an old farmhouse as well, and apparently a lot of strange goings-on have occurred there.
Oh, I wonder if she made good pies, because Grandma Betty sounds like somebody who would make a good pie.
I'm sure she did, but I have a picture of some demons that were that have taken place in Grandma Betty's, and I'll probably post those on
our website,
either Facebook or Twitter. In the website.
We could also tweet them out, and now would be a good time to give away that information, just so in case people want to get it.
Sure, go ahead.
You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, and you can get to both of those links by our website, which is TheEoNProject.com. Again, TheEoNProject.com.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Monroe House quickly.
Sure.
So the Monroe House is an older home built sometime in the mid to late 1800s, I believe. And as I stated, it's in a city called Hartford City, Indiana. Mm-hmm. And most recently, I think where I actually went ahead and saw an episode of a show called Paranormal Lockdown.
I've seen that show.
Which I have to say, I have to be honest, shows like that destroy the credibility of anybody doing actual paranormal research.
Not
because,
so good. Yeah.
I don't know. It was outlandish.
Well, they go out of the it's very outlandish. It's a good word for it. It's over the top. It's very sensationalistic.
True.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, you go back to the early days of the paranormal television revolution, if you will.
It was like, what, about 15 years ago?
Yeah, so Ghost Hunters became the popular one, right? And if you remember some of the early episodes, I mean, they'd go through whole episodes. They wouldn't really experience much of anything. Right. They'd go back once in a while. They'd catch an EVP.
But it was very low-key.
It was low-key.
More realistic.
And now, because everybody's on TV, everybody wants the ratings, everybody has to be over the top. And so you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Well, one day we'll discuss, not today, but one day we'll discuss our dealings with some paranormal folks many years ago with regard to sensationalistic claims and ginning up supposed paranormal activity where there was none and so on. But we're not going to discuss that today.
So the Monroe House, as I said, is in Hartford City, Indiana. It's also known as the Demon House. And supposedly the hauntings go back as early as the 1930s when a Belgian family lived there.
Those Belgians.
Ah, yeah, they were frightening people.
Yep.
Anyway.
They make waffles.
They do. The Belgian waffle. Oh, it's delicious.
Well, you know why the Belgian waffle is so popular?
Why is that?
Because the Ukrainian waffle tastes like crap.
Oh, what do the Ukrainians put on for toppings, you think?
Well, you know what? Dirt, rocks, whatever may be in the field.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So apparently there's a negativity that's attached to this house, and it's been there for close to a century now. And there's obviously been many, many theories about what is haunting the house. Is it demonic? Is it a figment of people's imagination? Mm-hmm. And I tend to subscribe to a few different theories. I mean, we talked a few weeks ago about the fake haunted house that was built.
Yes.
Remember you mentioned that?
Yes, I did.
The power of suggestion, right? Where you go into a house and you think it's haunted.
If somebody tells you that it's haunted, you're going to think it's haunted.
Right. So you're in a basement, you're crawling around a crawl space. Right. All of a sudden you get your back caught on a nail that's sticking out of the floor joists, and you think somebody's scratching you, when in reality it's not.
What would you be doing in a crawl space under somebody's house?
Well, apparently there's a very infamous crawl space associated with the Monroe house. Oh. It's a little dirt, not much clearance, maybe 6 to 8 inches of clearance, and people have gone in there and crawled around in there, and supposedly that is a lot of the epicenter of some of the demonic activity. Yeah,
but why would... Okay. If you crawl around in any space underneath any home, you probably would encounter some sort of
but here's the caveat to that.
You don't want to encounter.
They found human bones in the crawl space.
Oh, okay.
And some other supposed ritualistic material, like somebody was trying to exorcise some demons.
I see.
They actually had to call local authorities out to investigate the bones that were found.
Who found it? Was it...
So the homeowner went down there and was doing some excavating, and then they brought in a paranormal group, and they continued the excavation. When they found these bones, they found a skull and some other random bones.
The paranormal group found the skull? Found the bones?
That's correct.
Wow.
And
okay.
they actually had to stop the investigation, call the authorities.
Yeah, that would stop the investigation right there.
That's true. So there's been shadowy figures seen, faceless shadowy figures, mind you.
Okay.
Shadow people, that's a big one.
You know, we have to do a show on shadow people. I have a personal connection with a person who relayed some tales to me about shadow people that was very credible witness, and some very interesting stories about shadow people. But yeah. So over the years, you know, especially most recently, there've been a lot of different paranormal groups that have gone in there and you know, done supposed investigations and things of that sort. One of the groups was so freaked out that they ran out of the house. Wouldn't come back in. Were they yelling and their arms flailing about?
They did. They were. So apparently there's supposedly the spirit of a young girl that was tortured or killed there.
Ew.
And there's a conflict. There's a supposed conflict between one of the energies or spirits that are trying to escape the house, and one that's supposedly trying to control what's going on there.
Where does this information come from?
This is various research over the years from different groups, homeowners, firsthand accounts of things that have gone on there. So, and in my opinion, to go down that road, I certainly believe in something. I certainly believe that, as we talked a few weeks ago about the conservation of energy and how energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right?
Correct.
So the human body is made of energy, right? Matter and energy and things of that sort.
Yes.
As we know, when you're alive, you're moving around. When you perish, when you die, when your body dies, that energy has to go somewhere, has to be converted to something else, right?
Yes, you would think.
So where does it go?
I'm sure that I don't know.
We don't know. So I guess the plausible or one of the plausible explanations would be it just maintains itself in a different form that, you know, is not observable to everyday normal human activity. But every once in a while, for some reason, the wires get crossed, so to speak, and it comes across in different ways.
So, according to that rationale, then the energy that is being retained in a certain location may not necessarily be a cognizant energy or an intelligence, but more of just energy.
Right.
So not necessarily a ghost, meaning something that is haunting you on purpose, but something that just happens to be there, and you just be able to happen to see it, if that makes sense.
Right. I guess that would be a residual effect of some kind.
Right.
But there are people that subscribe to the idea that that these things have intelligence and that they can interact on their free will, if you will, interact with the other side, which would be us. And so, certain people believe that. Some people think that there's a demonic or a devilish aspect to it. I don't know if
not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. It can be a combination of all of those things and many others that we don't know about. So it could be, intelligently controlled, like you said, or it could be residual, or everything. And also, every case could be just different.
That's true.
So we don't know what it is.
So Mike and I, going back a few years back, we had undertaken one of these projects, not the Eon Project, but a paranormal investigative project.
Yes.
And
with mixed results.
We did have mixed results, but at the same time, and I claim myself to be a skeptical believer, I never had any personal firsthand accounts or experiences of any kind that would be considered paranormal up until the point where I started doing that. And
yes.
Not to get too specific about things, but let's just say there were a few instances of certain events that I personally witnessed, and I can say that it wasn't a hoax, and I can say,
right.
From my own personal opinion, because I don't believe anything anybody else tells me.
Right.
But when I experience it for myself, and I won't say it's paranormal in nature, it was odd, and I think it could have, used a little more investigation. However, that's what happens with these things. It's hard to nail them down scientifically. Right. Because they're not repeatable. You know what I mean?
Well, right, and exactly. And as case in point, so for the past, 20, 25 years or so, and people have been doing it a lot longer than that, but for the at least for the last 20 years, so many people have been investigating the paranormal using equipment, using scientific equipment and photographic and video and everything, and no one has definitive proof. So that must mean that it's not available. You can't have definitive proof.
So going back to the Monroe House for a minute, it's basically it's the stereotypical haunting in the sense that there's all kinds of different. It could be a residual haunting, could be demonic in nature, because there's all kinds of different things supposedly going on there. Unexplained fire, spontaneously manifested in the basement. Disembodied voices, which we all, that's a big one too, where you're just kind of like walking around trying to interact with your environment, and all of a sudden you hear something, which Mike and I experienced on one occasion.
Yeah,
and couldn't really explain.
Right.
When we were in an old house, which actually there was a fire in that house that we were in too that one time. But we'll talk more about that on another show. And like I said, there was different paranormal teams that have gone in there, and they have had different results over the years. But one thing that through Mike and I's experience doing one of these investigations, or a few of these investigations, I find like the EVP, which is the electronic voice phenomenon. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what that is.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Oh, I have to talk about it?
Yeah, you can talk about it.
So for those of you who don't know, and if you're listening to this show, you probably do, but we do get new listeners all the time. So electronic voice phenomenon would be an instance where something is, when you're doing a recording, usually via digital recording nowadays. You used to do it on tapes and stuff. And you're trying to interact with a spirit or an entity that may be in a certain location, and you don't actually hear anything at the time of the recording, but when you replay it later and review it, you actually do get voices or things that maybe voices, strange noises and things like that.
That's true, and some of them are a little more distinct than others. Some of them you kind of really have to listen, and sometimes your brain will play tricks on you, and you're trying to decipher what it's saying.
Right.
Other times it can be clear as day, and the skeptics will say that all it's doing is just picking up random radio signals from, say, some sort of broadcast, a radio broadcast or something of that sort. But
again, though, having been there and done it ourselves, we can tell you that at least some of them are quite impressive, because there's no way that they could have been radio contamination, because there was no electricity. I can think of one in particular where, in a home where there was no electricity, it was a vacant home, and there was nothing around it, and everybody who was part of this process was very cognizant of ambient noise and actually made it a very quiet environment. So, and voices did come up on recording that were not anyone present.
That's true. Sense. Yeah, and one of the things about these investigations and things of this sort, a lot of times they're very uneventful. You go through the whole thing, and then you have to go back and review hours of tape and videotape and audio recordings, which is what happens. You put the headphones on, you can sit there and listen to an hour of nothingness just to try to find one little soundbite. So that's how you kind of know too. It's you're hearing silence for a long period of time, and all of a sudden something catches your attention in there for just a split second.
Right.
And you go back and you try to analyze what exactly that you've had there.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so were there, in the Monroe House, during your research, did you find any EVP evidence that was compelling or anything like that?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you go online and search I'm sure you could probably pull up some of the evidence that some of these teams have had. Like I said, when I went and watched the television show, I took that with a grain of salt because they're doing things like they'll take this box that has all these lights and it looks like something from the 50s. Like
it had like tinfoil around the antenna and it had Christmas lights on it. And supposedly this was, I don't remember what they called it.
It's like a spirit box or something.
Some kind of a box. Well, that's another thing. And we can talk about paranormal ridiculousness in another show. But that particular one was just over the top. Like you said, it was a box that supposedly can transmit information from ghosts.
And
it doesn't even tell you what it scientifically supposedly does.
And not only that, they'll sit there and they'll ask it a question,
right?
And then it'll give the most ridiculous, like not ridiculous,
random,
but like a response that would really probably scare the poop out of you,
right?
If you thought it was an actual ghost saying, "Get out of here,"
right?
And it sounds like that. And you're like, come on.
But it sounds so over the top, and it's not.
I just banged the mic. Sorry about that.
I saw that.
That was a paranormal event.
You sure?
So, tying in with the Monroe house was another house that I got to go by, called Grandma Betty's house.
Yes.
And Grandma Betty is related to 51 Pan Man, who we're going to bring on here in just a minute.
All right.
But supposedly, and I won't get too much into it. I'll let 51 Pan Man talk a little bit about it. But there's been a lot of tragedy associated with this house. A lot of deaths, people that have had some issues there over the years, and because of that, there's been some evidence, like I said, there's some photographic evidence and personal experiences that have also happened in this place. And when you go to Indiana, it's funny because there's a lot of old farmhouses. There's a lot of old abandoned farmhouses and silos, and it just has overall in the countryside, it just has kind of an eerie feel to it.
Never been in a silo. I'd like to go in there.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
You're going to be careful, though.
Round building.
It's a round building. They used to put things
in there.
So I think what we'll do right now is we'll break here for a second.
We're gonna reach out to Mr. Pan Man.
We're gonna get Pan Man on the line and
we'll discuss Miss Betty,
Grandma Betty, and any other experiences or things that he knows about the supernatural and paranormal events of Indiana.
All right.
So we'll be back in just a second. All right, I'd like to welcome the special guest that we have on today. 51 Pan Man is here. 51 Pan Man, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you, gentlemen?
Good. How's it going?
Use that term loosely.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Hey, I want to thank you very much for offering to bring me out to Indiana and stay with you. And
you stayed with him?
I did, and that's kind of something that would be out of the norm for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't really know this guy.
No,
I don't know him at all, actually.
No.
And
did you drink all of his beverages? Because that sounds like something you do.
Nope, I didn't. But
he took advantage of my mother's fantastic coffee making.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, well that's about right.
So we had quite a series of adventures out there, and I was telling Mike earlier that one of the scariest paranormal events I had while I was out there is when I went to that giant chicken coop and saw all the little birds staring at me.
Yes, they've become aware, as my father says. He gets a little freaked out by the chickens.
It's like
I wonder if there's a connection with some sort of mass consciousness where all of the chicken brains get together and can. They start tracking you like some sort of large amorphous, entity.
That's true. I think that's why they keep them caged up like that.
Yeah, they've grown cognizant of their surroundings.
It's like a twisted Far Side comic. That's for certain, Mike.
All right, so I think we want to talk a little bit about Grandma Betty's house. I mean, we already spoke a little bit about the Monroe house, but you have a personal connection to another historic farmhouse that has had some tragedy associated with it, as also in addition to some paranormal events. So why don't you talk a little bit about your connection to the house and maybe some of the things that you know about it and things that you've seen there?
Certainly, yeah. My first recollection of that house is staying there when I was pretty young, and at that point, I was just terrified of the home, and I think a lot of people would assume because it's an older home and that it is you're a child, you're just scared of that house because it's new. But that house really made me very afraid, and beyond what I would call just uncomfortableness. As I grew older, I learned through the family that the home had ghosts or spirits, and it was never taken very seriously But as I grew older, my sister began to care for a member of the family that owned the home there, and her paranormal experiences became much more drastic and much more pronounced. And at that point, actual visible things began to occur, and more serious things occurred that would certainly lend itself to the idea that the house is haunted. I should preface everything too by saying that I'm a skeptic in a lot of ways. I tend to rationalize a lot of things, and I'm not just about ghosts and goblins and scary things. I really try to look at things and determine what it is from a scientific point of view. But that house is haunted. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
So you had mentioned something earlier, just when you first started, that when you were a young kid, that you had some reservations about the house. Did you have experiences, or was it more of just like a feeling of just kind of foreboding, or some kind of something like that?
Well, I always thought that at first it was just that feeling of foreboding, but as I look back on it now, there was a particular room that I stayed in that was right below the attic, and in that particular room, I always felt like someone was watching me, or I felt as if there was something there. I never saw anything. I don't even recall hearing anything. Other family members have seen manifestations, but I personally didn't experience anything at that level. But I just know it just always seemed like there was somebody in the room with me. I was just really afraid that at any minute something was going to get me, if that makes sense. And I wasn't a small child. I was probably 11, 12 years old. So, I sort of realized that I was almost a little bit beyond the monster under the bed sort of thing, if that makes sense to you. So it just really made me feel very uncomfortable being in that home.
Let me ask you this. Do you know anything about the history of the home itself, and any tragedies that may have occurred there that could possibly lend itself to any kind of haunting type activity?
Certainly. There's a few things I know about the home. I do know that it was a relative of mine. It would have been my great-great-grandfather was a doctor, and that home was part of his practice. And I know that they've had patients that have suffered there. I don't know specifically if any of his patients passed there. I do know that they had funerals in the home because in the town, as you know, Jay, you've seen it, it's very small. It was a very prominent home in that small town, and a lot of times other people use that home as a place to have funerals. So in that respect, there's been that presence there. One of the most tragic things that happened there would be I believe he'd be like a great uncle. He would be my grandfather's sister's husband. Had a tragic accident in the front yard while working with a utility tractor, and the tractor actually flipped and killed him. And I remember that vividly because I was in my early teens when that occurred. Mm-hmm. There's also a railroad track that is back behind the home, and just back behind the home, a railroad worker was pinned between two rail cars and killed.
That's a way to go.
So there is that. Yeah, no, and it's my understanding that he was alive until the point where the rail cars were pulled apart, and at that point he passed. So, yeah.
That's nasty.
So that's a well-known, documented accident, and in conjunction to the property, it's literally walking distance through the woods that's behind the home.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility that particular incident, obviously a tragic one, and one of the theories is that the more tragic the incident, the more likely that there'll be a residual energy. So I mean that energy could have attached itself to the property, which is obviously nearby.
Certainly, and there's a lot of without airing my family's dirty laundry by any means. There's a history of let's call it discontent with family members that have resided there for a long time, personal problems, other types of issues. So the home has always occupants of that home have always had struggles later in as they live, not passing, but just continuing on in their life.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, and this actually came up in one of our previous episodes, is that if there is such an energy or an oppressive energy or a demonic or some sort of negative energy, it can manifest itself as far as having an overall depressing effect on people's lives, on their personal relationships, on their attitudes, on their health, and things like that.
And it's very interesting that you mentioned that, Mike, because these family members that I'm referring to, they've really tragically struggled in very tragic ways, and it's something that it almost seems like, boy, that's a lot for somebody,
right.
And definitely out of the realm of normal.
And obviously, aside from the documented incidents of death and tragedy, I mean, we all know that sometimes what goes on in the home is left unsaid or unknown to people outside the home. Right. So they could have, over the course of the history of the house, there could have been many a thing going on in there, different negative energies that attached itself that most people would never even have realized.
Well, and it's interesting that, the people that we know that have been in the home for a long time, or have cared for people there in the home, have experienced things that are more visual and auditory. Those things, I know about because I'm a family member, but they're not documented.
Mm-hmm. So, have you personally had recently, or as an adult, had any incidents there that you know of personally that you've witnessed? Or
certainly,
yeah,
yes. Most recently, my sister and my ex-wife were there, and we were in the driveway, and we were conversing with my sister, and my ex-wife and my sister looked up at the upstairs window, which you've seen. It's kind of it almost looks like a castle tower. It's an old Victorian home, and at that third level of that circular tower, there's a window towards the attic, and the curtain moved, and it was as if someone had pulled the curtain aside and released it. And I was standing right there. My wife at the time, she swore and said, "Did you just see that?" And my sister saw it, and so it was clearly something there. There's some photographs that I'm going to provide to you guys that have some very interesting features in them.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, Jay, when I initiated this with you, I sent you the one photograph and said, "Hey, just look at this and see if you see anything."
Right.
And you responded back and said, "Oh yeah, I see it." And I didn't tell you anything about the photograph. I just provided it to you and let you look at it. For your information, Mike, I don't believe you've seen the photograph, but there's visual manifestations in the photograph. The photograph was taken by the county surveying department when they do the property tax assessment, and it was posted on the website about the home, and it was discovered by accident, but there's visual manifestations in the windows and so forth that you can see.
Yeah, it seems like that's interesting, because I know, just knowing what I know of the paranormal, and it seems like that's a common thing when people take photographs of the exterior of homes. A lot of times things appear in windows, and I wonder what that is. I wonder what the reason for that is, other than whatever is in the home is interested in why you're taking pictures of it, or something along those lines.
Well, and that's kind of what I wonder. I wonder if it's saying, "Hey, we're here." You know what I mean? Or
right.
I mean, you wonder because why can you drive by that house? I've drove by it on countless occasions, and in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh, I'm going to see something,"
right.
and I never do.
Right.
So it's in a way, I think it's interesting that when you do tend to see things, or when I've talked to people that have observed things, they're not expecting it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going into it with the idea that I'm going to see something.
Right.
So my sister, who stayed there for an extended period of time, I don't know how much time you have on the show for me to relay some of this other information.
Oh, keep going. You're good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. She experienced some very, very troubling things. The culmination of that is she believes that she was actually physically touched by something, and at that point she discontinued going to the home and staying overnight.
Mm-hmm.
She would stay there during the day to assist medically with my great aunt, but after that she would no longer stay in the home. But all this culminated through a period of additional photographs. I have a photograph actually that's very troubling that my sister took, and this is when, with social media being what it is, people take pictures now and send them to people and things like that, and they don't really look at the photograph. You know what I mean? And,
right.
They don't realize it until later. And this was the instance here. She had taken a photograph of my nephew who was sitting on the couch at that home reading, and in the background there's a very visible, troubling entity. I mean, it initially, I'm sort of creeps me out talking about it, but it almost looks photoshopped. It's so bad. So it's really.
I think what we should do is, and like you said, you still have these photographs. If you could get them to me, send them email them to me, and I'll take a look. And with your permission, I'd like to repost them, via some of our social media sites here, so people can take a look at them.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, I'd like to get the opinion of other listeners as well, because like I said, I'm clearly a believing skeptic, if that makes sense. I'm certainly not arrogant enough to assume that there's things out there that I don't understand, but I still have a hard time wrapping my mind around the whole Scooby-Doo paranormal, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense to me.
I definitely know that there are things out there that we can't comprehend. So I would be interested in knowing what a listener thinks. Maybe they look at that picture and say, oh no, that's fake. That's a problem with the pixels and I know this because I'm a photography expert. That'd be fine. But I tend to believe that most people would look at the stuff and say, I can't explain that.
Well, before you came on the show, Jay was actually talking about some photographs and things like that, and his point was applicable to what you're saying. So if you take the photograph and you know that there was nothing there, or where the photograph came from, and no one is trying to play a hoax on you, then it's evidence to you. But to most people, they automatically think that it's made up, or that you've manipulated the photograph somehow.
Certainly, yeah, and that's with these photographs, when they were sent to me by my sister, I looked at them and I thought, those are fake. There's no way those are real. Mm-hmm. But then when I talked to her subsequently, she was troubled, very troubled by it. And people that are very skeptical in my family, including my parents, are now believers that there's something wrong with the home. My family went there to visit my great aunt as she was sick, and actually took a local pastor there to pray with her. Cause we're a religious family, very, very devout Christian family, and this pastor was troubled by it. He made the statement that he had never been in a place that was so oppressive to him.
Wow.
And he made the analogy that he felt like he was walking through cobwebs when he broke the threshold of the door.
Now, my next question to you actually was: has there been any attempts to either perform any type of cleansing ritual or conduct an investigation, a further investigation using scientific equipment? Has there been any type of investigation or cleansing?
Here's an interesting caveat to all of that, is that after this happened, my sister approached with the pastor coming to visit. And my sister had been sharing with the family and this pastor that, she felt, a very dreadful, bad presence there. So the question was given, approached to my aunt. My mother was there for this, and Jay knows my mother from this last visit, and he knows the type of person she is. She works for the state. She's an investigator. So she's she's as skeptical can be.
Very grounded person in reality.
She is, and she was present for this conversation with my great aunt. And my sister said, well, we'd like to maybe have a pastor come here and, pray for the house. And she tried to approach it delicately, because in the family, it's sort of a taboo topic to talk about the home in a negative light. Everybody will agree that the home is haunted, but everybody says, well, they're happy spirits or good spirits. And my personal belief is There is no such thing. but that's my opinion.
Right.
But during this conversation, my aunt grew extremely irritated and angry, and which is totally uncharacteristic for her. Was one of the most gentle souls I've ever met, and she became extremely angry and made the comment that if there's anything here, it is welcome to stay. I like it. And that is, a paraphrase. I don't know the exact quote, but that was pretty close to what she said. And everybody was really taken back by that,
I almost equate it. Yeah, I almost equate it to, and this may be a strange analogy, but almost like a domestic violence situation where the husband is the abuser and the wife, and they just become so. The average everyday person would think, well, how could a person stay in a place like that?
It's like a dysfunctional relationship.
Exactly. That's right. The person is being abused over and over again, but they are so. It's such a symbiotic relationship that they would never turn on the husband, and that they almost like have become used to living in that kind of environment. I would say that'd probably be kind of a similar scenario, except a paranormal aspect or a paranormal version of that, where the person has become so used to and loves the home so much, and that has become used to the different entities that have attached itself to the home, that they just have lived with it for so long, and that they just want it to be a part of their lives.
Well, and it's funny because I don't know how much credit to lend to some of these statements, but my aunt had made the comment before that there was a little girl there that brought her flowers, and we don't have any girls in our family.
Right.
It's all boys. So there's my son who is 16. Jay had the pleasure of meeting him. He adamantly refuses to even drive into the driveway. He's been to the home when he was young. He went with family members there to visit my great aunt, and he won't go back. So there's certainly. And interestingly enough, he is interested in the paranormal. You guys spoke about the Monroe House. That is literally 20 miles from my home here, and the rumors of that place have circulated throughout this area. And he wants to go by it and check it out. That's the Monroe House. But he doesn't want to go anywhere near this other home.
One of them's too personal. That's what it is. I'm sure.
Well, I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't. Catch that part.
I said one of them is too personal. He doesn't want to go into the home that he's connected.
And that's probably the reality of it, is that you can drive by the Monroe House and see it right from the street. Which I'd be happy to provide you with some photographs of that as well if you'd like to see it.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of stuff on the internet, but I can provide those to you firsthand from me.
Does someone live in the home now? Is it occupied?
No. The home is unoccupied, and I'm not an expert on that home in any way, but I do know from a lot of people that now the current owner is thinking about turning it into an attraction. Obviously, with all the paranormal things going on in today, I think he's seen that it could possibly be. Some source of recouping his loss on the home, because it's been empty for 10 years. And a lot of people don't know the true history of that home, but the documentation of the human remains being found in there is accurate. That was publicized locally. I mean, Jay and I share similarity in our professions, and that stuff is verifiable. So it's clear that those bones were there.
So that's the Monroe House you're referring to. As far as Grandma Betty's house is concerned, is that particular home occupied, or is it who owns it now, and is there anybody living there?
It's still in the family, and since my great aunt passed, the home was passed on to her grandchildren. They don't live locally; they come recently, here and there. Prior to you coming, Jay, we had discussed the possibility of going to the home. You remember that? And but unfortunately, Mike, I don't know if you're aware, there was a burglary in the home just a week before Jay arrived here. He'd already made his flight arrangements and was on his way here.
It wasn't him, was it?
it wouldn't surprise me from what I know of him now. I wouldn't certainly be shocked. But no, and even that just seems sort of odd to me.
Right.
That the home was burglarized and it was damaged inside, and that's never happened. That home's the town that we live in. It's everybody, and you don't lock your house. As a matter of fact, Jay would regularly take the keys out of my vehicle when we would stop places because I just leave them in the ignition here. So it's that's the kind of mentality we have out here in the Midwest, and it's interesting that home was burglarized just prior to Jay's arrival.
So just to kind of wrap things up here, and obviously we appreciate your time and your information on this.
Certainly.
So just quickly, your own personal belief, you think there's something going on there. It just hasn't been. It needs to be, I think, investigated a little bit further. I would guess from your opinion, and also when you get a chance, just send me those pictures and things, and I'll get them posted.
Absolutely. It's a brief summary. Personally, my belief, I think there's something demonic about the home, just based on the level of fear and some of the incidents that have occurred, the aggressiveness of it. I've done some research now. I know a little bit about poltergeists. It's certainly a malevolent thing. It sort of establishes itself as passive and subtle at first, but once things began to pick up for the people that firsthand, were there or experienced things, it became malevolent. It became dangerous at that point. So certainly whatever's there, I don't think is Casper the Friendly Ghost. Something there is bad. There's no question that there's tragedy around the home. So I tend to believe, as you stated earlier, Jay, that the impact of those tragedies have become a conduit there, and it's sort of resonating out to the spirit world.
All right, well, that's awesome. Well, we appreciate your
definitely
firsthand knowledge and accounts of what's going on over there, and we'll stay in touch, and hopefully maybe someday we can make another trek out there, and if the home is still in the family, maybe participate in some sort of investigation there.
That sounds great.
I'd be happy to host both of you. Thank you for coming out. It was a pleasure having you, and I really enjoyed the time.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks again to 51 Pan Man and his wealth of knowledge out there.
I was impressed with Pan Man just because he obviously very well spoken, knows a little bit about he probably knows more than we do. Is probably what.
Yeah, no, that was good. Everything flowed, I think, relatively well there, and like we said, we're going to get those. Hopefully, we'll get those pictures. We'll get them sent, put up, and everybody can kind of make their own opinion as to what they're observing there.
All right. Well, the next part of the show is going to be focused on my topic of the day, which is the Dybbuk box.
The Dybbuk box. Now, Is this something that you may find at an adult entertainment store?
No, but that's a good guess. But before I get to the Dybbuk box, I want to relay a funny story that happened to me this past week.
Yeah.
So, as you know, for my job, my job that actually pays me, not this job, which does not pay.
No, it doesn't. Maybe someday
it may in the future.
Hopefully.
But I do a lot of traveling. So I spend a lot of time, traveling around in hotels and whatnots. And for some reason, and this is another unexplained mystery, unexplainable to me, I keep getting assigned handicap rooms in hotels.
You're getting assigned the handicap room?
Yeah. So, and it's not something that I request or anything.
Right.
And I'm wondering if they're something about me, my personal visage.
So you think they look at you and they think there's something wrong with this guy?
And they think that there's something wrong with me, and they give me the handicap room. So I don't understand what that is.
So what makes the room any different than a normal room?
That's a great question, because that's what I'm going to talk about. So the handicap room is obviously it's ADA compliant, Americans with Disabilities Act.
Sure. So the doors are wider and things like that?
The doors are wider, yeah. They make sure that, if you're in a wheelchair or whatever, which I'm not. But maybe someone thinks that I should be, because I keep getting assigned these rooms. So the most glaring of the differences is in the bathroom, as many of our topics
Is it a low toilet?
It is slightly lower. There is a bar on the side of
safety bar,
so you can lift yourself up and off the toilet.
Correct.
However, there's two things. Number one, there's a phone right next to the toilet for some reason.
Emergency phone.
So I have to imagine if you're stuck on the toilet, you can't get out. You can pick up the phone and call someone.
You know, quickly, when I was a child, we visited a family friend in Florida, and I thought this was the coolest thing that I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah?
In their regular home, in their regular bathroom, they literally had a phone on the wall.
Yeah.
So you could answer it and you make phone calls while using the toilet.
That just means that they go to the bathroom.
That was the
a lot.
coolest thing ever.
Yeah. But anyway, so besides the phone next to the toilet, the shower facility in this particular one, so they have like a, you know what a zero entry pool is?
Yeah. You just kind of roll yourself into the pool.
Yeah, like there's no like steps to go down or anything like that. You just kind of gradually. So they have that in the shower. So there's not actually a stall. It's like the floor is sloped slightly.
So it's like a wheelchair ramp into the shower, basically.
Yeah. So I was all excited about this because there's no there's no divider. You can just go in the shower and you don't have to step over things because I'm very lazy. Mm-hmm. But this particular shower, handicap shower, had a normal shower head. And then also off to the side, a removable shower
like
head.
a wand.
Like a wand, but it was a completely separate faucet.
Yeah.
So you could be taking a shower with the regular shower head, and then you could also turn on the wand.
Simultaneously.
So I was very excited. So I had to try it as an experiment. So this is what I did. So in the shower, this is a family show, so I won't get into more specific details about what I was doing in the shower. However, I came up with the idea of trying to create weather phenomenon in my bathroom.
Oh.
So what I did was this. I turned the main shower head as hot as it could possibly be.
Yep.
And then I turned the removable wand shower head to as cold as it could possibly be.
So you can operate them independently, temperature-wise.
Yes, they operate independently.
Oh.
So
you're going to create a vortex in the shower.
That's exactly what I tried doing.
Yeah.
So I had the hot air, I had the hot water, the cold water. They were both hitting me simultaneously. I didn't know if I should be hot or cold, but I can tell you that the experience was invigorating. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was dancing around in there like some sort of fool. And I was hoping to create clouds because, or a thunderstorm in my bathroom.
I see.
Alas, no thunderstorm was created.
Not in the shower.
No, not in the bathroom.
Maybe on the handicapped toilet earlier.
Yes. But so the shower experiment failed, but I did have a good time with myself.
You did, and you enjoyed that. And
and the whole time I was doing it, I said, I'm going to tell everybody on the show. You just bumped the mic again.
I did, sorry.
I'm going to tell everybody on the show about my experience in the shower.
And I'm sure that they were sitting on the edge of their seats, riveted by this. The thought of Mike naked in the shower, creating a self-induced thunderstorm in a hotel shower. Now, what would you have done if you created some sort of wormhole?
Well, I was afraid.
It was like sucking the hotel in upon itself.
Well, I'd be the first to go because I was at the epicenter of it. So I wouldn't have been able to, warn anyone. I would just go right into the wormhole.
What if there was some sort of other malfunction and you were about to drown or something, and you had to run out of the hotel room naked?
How am I going to drown in the shower?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was a paranormal.
No, but
event.
that's a fear that I have of another thing is when I'm shaving. I have to shave really fast because I don't want half my face shaven in case there's an earthquake or something happens and I got to run out. Then I'm gonna have half a shaven face as I run and avoid falling bridges and stuff.
You're not one of these guys that shaves completely naked, are you? Like shave your face naked?
No, I wouldn't do that.
That's weird.
No, people do that.
They do. I've seen it.
Anyway, we're gonna talk about the Dybbuk box now.
Let's do it.
So I'm gonna explain what a Dybbuk box is in a little bit, and this is actually it's a fascinating tale. And you have to stay with me because it's not a complicated tale to follow. However, there's a couple of different moving parts to it. It's actually an interesting story about the paranormal, and it has ties to the information age as well. So, my question to you is this, Jason: can objects be haunted? Or cursed?
Like an inanimate object?
An object, yes.
I don't believe so, in my personal opinion.
Okay, so is it possible that spirits can attach themselves to objects? And by possessing the objects, people can be haunted or cursed as well.
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
No.
I'm asking your opinion.
I don't think so.
Well, history's full of tales of people claiming that objects can be possessed with certain powers and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think we even mentioned a couple of them on the show previously. The Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, the Spear of Destiny, so on and so forth. And by possessing these objects, it's said that you can receive certain powers, right? We've talked about this before.
Yep.
So if items can bestow powers on people, wouldn't it stand to reason that they can also curse people?
That would make sense if
right?
you believe in that, sure.
So we're going to focus on a specific claim of a chain of events related to an antique wine box.
Oh.
That we're going to discuss. It's like when I say a wine box, people don't know what that is. So it's like a
boxed wine with the thing with the little tap on it?
No, but those boxed wine is delicious and a good value.
People make fun of the boxed wine, but you know what? You get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And it lasts a long time.
It does last a long time.
And then when you're done with it, You can, when the bag is empty, you can open the box, take the bag out, the bladder that's in there, and you can inflate the bladder and make a pillow out of it.
That's a great. You know what?
Survival tip.
Winos can take a page from you.
Yep.
So anyway, so the wine box here that we're discussing is an antique box with a 2 doors that kind of fold outwards, and it was designed to hold a bottle or 2 of wine. You know, back in the day, you would have had this in your dining room or something along those. I don't know who would have. I never had a wine box.
No.
Like that.
They're not fancy enough.
So the story begins in Portland, Oregon. Or is it Oregon or Oregon?
You know, I always said Oregon, but I knew a kid that was from Oregon.
They say Oregon.
And he said Oregon.
Yeah,
you can't say Oregon.
No.
Okay.
You say Oregon. So it begins with an estate sale. You know what an estate sale is?
Yeah, somebody passes away and they're trying to sell off the items in the home.
When I hear estate sale, I think of like Versailles, like an estate where you go in this manicured lawns.
Like if I passed away, we'd have an estate sale here, but this isn't really an estate.
This isn't really an estate.
No, it's more of it's a hovel.
What a real estate sale, I'm sorry, not real estate, a real estate sale.
Yep.
It's just like, you know, somebody, like you said, somebody dies and you go and buy all their crap because they usually have a bunch of crap lying around. So this guy, he owned a furniture refinishing business, and so obviously he went to estate sales a lot because that's where he got his inventory and stuff. So he goes to the home of a woman who just died at the age of 103.
Whoa!
So that's pretty old. A great-granddaughter was there of this person and explained that the woman was a Polish immigrant that had survived a Nazi concentration camp and came to the United States after the war, after hiding out in Spain for a time. So a persecuted Jewish woman from Poland. And so that's who owned the home. So the item of interest to the dealer was this small ornamental wine box, like I just described. So he buys the thing. It didn't really say, the research doesn't really say how much he paid for it. It doesn't really matter. It wasn't a lot of money. But the great-granddaughter, he was walking out of the estate sale and she goes, "Oh, you got the Dybbuk box."
Oh.
And he goes, "What is the Dybbuk box?" And she just says, "Oh, well, that's the great-grandmother had it and she always kept it in her sewing room and out of reach of people. Like it was always up high on a shelf and she never opened it." And she said, she called it the Dybbuk box. And she said she told everybody the box should never be opened and that her final request was that it be buried with her. They didn't bury the box with her.
Uh-oh.
And instead they sold it to this dude.
And trouble ensued.
Right, right. You can see, it sounds like a movie, right?
I'm waiting for the punchline, but
there's no punchline.
This
is supposedly this is true, and this is verified by a few different people. So unless there's a major conspiracy between people going on, this may have some truth to it.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the guy felt bad, and the great grandmother had just died, so he offered to give the box back to the great granddaughter. She said she got really upset, and she said, "You bought it, you made a deal, you got to take it."
Okay.
So that should be a warning sign number 1.
Yeah,
right?
they want to get rid of that thing.
They don't want it. So the guy took the box and he puts it in the basement of his business, and he was intending to refinish it later and maybe give it as a gift or sell it in his shop. So he leaves the shop to do some errands. This just happened. So he just bought it. He lives it in his basement of the shop. 30 minutes later, he receives a frantic phone call from one of his employees that there's an intruder in the basement breaking things and swearing. So and that the employee was locked in the shop and couldn't get out.
Whoa.
Supposedly, she couldn't open the door. She couldn't get out. So he rushes over there and he finds the employee in the fetal position in a corner crying. So he goes downstairs and immediately he smells a strong odor of cat urine, which, you know, cat urine has a very distinct.
Very distinct. I've been in a few homes with a lot of cats, and it's not pleasant.
Not a pleasant smell. And the breaking sound was all of the lights in the basement were broken, and they were all over the floor. All the light bulbs had broken, fluorescent lights and incandescent lights.
So they like exploded.
Yeah,
somehow.
all the lights were broken. But there was no sign of an intruder. So he goes upstairs. The employee had left and never came back and wouldn't discuss what happened.
Well, that sounds reasonable.
Well, yeah, if that happened to you, you probably wouldn't want to come back to the shop.
No, definitely not.
Right? No. So the guy decides he's going to give the box to his mom, which, that's a great idea, right?
He must not like his mom.
Well, he didn't know that there was these events.
So he's not attributing it to the box.
No, he hadn't done that at this point. He
Okay.
just figured out it was a weird incident or whatever. So he decides he's going to give the box to his mom. She comes over and to the house or whatever the case may be. He gives her the box, and he goes outside to make a phone call. Again, this guy leaves a lot to go do things.
Yeah.
And when he leaves, things happen. So he comes back, and the mom is catatonic.
Oh.
She's just sitting there staring straight ahead, and she had a stroke right after he gave her the box.
Okay.
So they rush her to the hospital. She's unable to talk for a few days, but she's able to write. So she was communicating via, pen and paper. So the kid shows up, the man shows up to ask how his mom's doing, and she writes "hate gift" down.
Hate gift.
Hate gift.
Like
that's all she said.
Like she hates the gift.
Correct.
That was given to her. This demonic box.
Well, it's starting to sound like it is.
Yeah.
Right. So now the guy says, okay, maybe this has something to do with the box.
Now,
So
wait a minute. Did you say that there's anything in this box?
No, there was nothing in. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I did not mention it. There was a couple of small items in there. There was like a cup, like a metallic cup,
like a little goblet.
Yeah, and like there was a little candlestick, but there was nothing.
No bottle of demonic wine.
No. There was nothing of.
Imagine if you drank the demonic wine that was in the box.
Wine. There's no wine.
Well,
if
there
box.
was wine, that'd be bad.
I'd drink it.
Yeah, you would.
I would. Anyway, so the guy decides he's going to get rid of the box at this point. So this is in his words, because this is actually where it becomes in the internet age. This story. So the guy tries to get rid of the box. So he gave the cabinet to his sister. And she kept it for a week, and then she gave it back, and she complained that she couldn't get the doors of the thing to stay closed. They kept coming open, even though there's no springs in the mechanism to open the doors automatically. They're just, little wooden doors. Mm-hmm. So he gave it to his brother and his wife, who kept it for 3 days and then gave it back. The brother said it smelled like jasmine flowers, while his wife insisted that it put out an odor of cat urine. Again, one person says it smells great. One person says it smells like cat piss. Okay. So the guy gives it to his girlfriend. So this is a nice guy, right? He's got a box, and now
he's got to know something's going on now.
Right,
he keeps giving it to people.
Well, he gives it to his girlfriend. That's how nice of he is. And then the girlfriend asks if she tries to give it back after 2 days. She says, you need to get rid of this thing. So they sold it the same day in the shop to a couple. 3 days later, the guy shows up at his shop, and the box is sitting on the front door. At the front doorstep with a note that says, "This is a bad darkness."
Oh.
And they gave it back. So what would
they
you do?
They didn't even want a refund.
No, they just gave it back. They said,
well, you know what this story reminds me of?
What's that?
That episode of the Brady Bunch when they went to Hawaii.
Oh, yeah,
and
the
they had
rock.
the cursed amulet or whatever that was.
It was a rock. It was a volcanic rock.
Was it a rock? I thought it was a necklace.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're right. It was an idol.
Yeah, an idol, yeah.
And then somebody went surfing, and then they fell or something.
Yeah, and there was a tarantula that was running rampant in the hotel room.
I remember
yeah,
that
it's
episode.
cursed.
Anyway, so the guy decides he's going to take it home, which I wouldn't take it home at this point. Would you?
No.
Would you take it home? No. So he starts having these weird dreams, and it's the same dream every time, where he's walking with a friend. The friends differ, but he's walking with a friend, and then he looks at the friend, and then all of a sudden it's transformed from their friend into a horrible-looking hag.
Oh.
Like an old woman, an old hag, demonic looking. And then the hag proceeds to beat him in the dream, just beating him up and stuff.
That actually
like
happened to me one time when I had
too
many adult beverages, and I woke up and was beaten by a hag.
Right. So then the strange thing is that when he wakes up, he would have marks on him consistent with where the hag was beating him in his dream.
Oh, so it manifested into reality.
Right. So then relatives who stayed at the home reported having the same dream without him giving information about the dream. So supposedly, this is a way that this whatever spirit is in the box is now, it's manifesting
It's
itself.
affecting others, yeah.
Right. So anyway, the guy does what every person nowadays does when they want to sell something. He goes on eBay.
Oh.
And he's going to sell the box on eBay. But what makes this interesting is that he puts all of this information on his eBay listing.
You probably would have been better selling it on Craigslist. No strings attached.
Right. So he goes on eBay. He gives this whole provenance of the box and explains all this stuff. Now, my question to you is this a real story? Because I'm not done with it. It actually gets a little bit funnier. Not funnier, but weirder. So do you think he made all this stuff up about the box to put some sort of value on a worthless antique?
That sounds about right to me, and
Right.
that's it's brilliant in that
Sure.
regard. If he ended up selling it and making some money on it,
So here's what happened. So he sells it on eBay. A college student bought it. Actually in Indiana, I believe.
Oh.
I believe the guy was from Indiana, and the college student gets it in the mail, and then all of a sudden starts having electronic issues. All of his electronics don't work. Everything's misfiring and everything. Bad smells coming from the box, and so he does what anybody else in the information age would do. He starts a blog about the experiences with the box.
I see.
So now you have a blog that's going, perhaps to gain publicity, or perhaps drive up the value of the box that he got, because he's just building on the previous story, right?
Yep.
So a local, and I promise this is almost done. So a local museum owner found the blog and was following it, and he offered to buy the box from the student. So he did, and he paid twice as much as the kid paid for it. So this thing's probably doubled, tripled
That's
in
the
value
ultimate curse right there.
in this.
A worthless box
Right.
that keeps making money.
Keeps making money. So the local museum owner buys it, and then he starts reporting strange illnesses, strange smells. He saw black figures roaming the home, shadow figures. And obviously he's curious about where this box came from. So he tracks down the original furniture guy who bought the thing. He contacts him and he asks him some questions. So at this point, the original furniture guy goes back to the home where he bought it at the estate sale. Again, this sounds like a movie, right? So he goes back to the house, and he finds living in the home now is this dead woman's cousin,
Who was alive.
who is alive.
Okay.
Yes. So she's alive, and she explains that back in Poland, prior to World War II, the woman and the cousin, the old woman and the cousin, started dabbling in the occult. This is how these stories start, right? So they didn't have much to do. Poland was very bleak at the time. Not a whole lot going on. So they decided they're going to get involved in the occult, witchcraft, and things of that sort. So they make a spirit board, like a Ouija board, like a homemade one, and they begin communicating with spirits. Evidently, they went too far, and they contacted an evil spirit known as a Dybbuk, which is a Yiddish word meaning an evil spirit that can possess the living. That's where the term Dybbuk box comes from. That's why the grandmother called it a Dybbuk box.
Kind of like a succubus.
Right. So they contacted this Dybbuk, and the Dybbuk communicated that it wanted to come across into our world, and the girls were in over their heads, and they had actually summoned this thing from the other side, and they realized that they had made a mistake, and they performed a magical ritual, and they trapped it in this box, supposedly.
Oh, kind of like from Ghostbusters when they trapped the ghost in that little box. What was that thing called? You remember that?
The trap.
The trap?
I don't remember if there was an actual term.
And then it caused a chain reaction at the headquarters. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And they made him shut the power down.
That mean guy from the EPA came in. And
Yeah, that guy's mean in every movie.
He is. He's a great jerk. He's probably dead now.
Why would they shut that thing down? Look what kind of havoc it
Because
caused.
they wouldn't have had a movie if they didn't.
That's true.
So anyway, so they trapped this evil spirit in the Dybbuk box, supposedly, and that's why it's causing all this trouble. Mm-hmm. So the museum owner does what you and I would do, which is create a box to put the box in.
Oh, a box to contain the box.
Yes, he creates it out of acacia wood, which is an ancient tree, and coated it in gold, which may sound familiar because acacia wood covered in gold is the same material that they supposedly made the Ark of the Covenant of to keep whatever spirits or energies contained. So the guy creates this box, puts the thing in it, and since then, nothing's happened.
Where is the box?
That's a great question. Because with the final piece of this story, and this actually just happened earlier this year, the box was actually purchased by Zach Baggins, who is the guy that does the paranormal...
Oh, I thought you were going to say that guy from The Hobbit.
No, that's Bilbo Baggins.
Oh, okay. No relation?
No, Zach Baggins is the guy that runs that Paranormal Adventures
Oh, that big
show,
meathead guy?
The guy with the huge arms.
Yeah.
So he bought it, and he's putting it... apparently he has a haunted museum in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. And again... This is yet another sensationalistic thing. So he bought it. If you want to view the thing in his museum, you have to sign a waiver that says, I know that this thing has paranormal... So, again, all of these steps could be, A, real paranormal activity. There could be really a demon in this box or a spirit. Or each one of these people figured out that this is a way that they could drive up the value of this item and make some money on it.
Yeah, it sounds to me like... that would be the case. One person had the idea, and then all of a sudden it's kind of perpetuated over the course of ownership. And people now it has a provenance. Now it has a history.
Right. Now you want it.
That it's semi-documented in the sense that people are reporting this and it's well known.
Right.
So that's never going to go away now.
No.
Over the
So
course of time.
Now it's going to be known as the even though it could be absolutely nothing. So the moral of the story is you could take anything in your home and do this exact same thing with it.
I have an old shoebox that I store things in.
Probably because your feet smell really badly.
Yeah.
And that's the smell that's coming from the box.
That's the smell, and it's haunted now.
So before we end the program, I wanted to relay this because it just happened to me.
Yeah, what happened?
Yesterday.
Oh, yesterday. I thought you meant right now.
No, not just now. So my lovely family and I went to there's a place in this area known as Smith's Castle, which is an old home that was, they call it a castle, but it's just a really large home back from the colonial days, late 1600s, early 1700s.
Oh, that's old.
Yeah, and it was it's just, like it's open for tours, like one of those heritage places that you can go. And they were having this little festival thing.
Old people dressed in period attire.
Yeah, there was some people like that. They have the old games, like the hula hoop thing that you hit with the stick and
Can you
run
churn
around.
butter and stuff?
They had a butter churn, but there was a sign that said "Don't churn the butter."
Why not?
They didn't want
they
didn't want you over churning
spirits coming out of the butter churn.
But anyway, so outside of this thing, they had some vendor booths and stuff, and off to the side was this really old like circus sideshow stage, like with the weird graphics,
like the old timey Ringling Brothers kind of thing.
Just like that. Yeah. And there was a guy walking around there, and he was really tall, skinny, bony, old. He looked like the bad guy from Phantasm. Remember the tall? Oh yeah, the tall man is what they called him.
How about like the old skeleton guy from Poltergeist?
Looks just like that.
Yeah,
exactly like that. So he had a hat on too, which made it even worse. Those old timey hats.
Yeah.
So he's walking around over there. And he gets on the microphone. He goes, "The puppet show is about to start."
Oh, so I don't like the sound of that already.
Exactly. So everybody starts gathering around. A lot of kids there, and my kids they wanted to see the puppet show. A couple of them did. A couple of them didn't. So we go over there, and I'm already nervous, right? Because this is a setup that I don't like. So the guy comes out, and he's got this marionette that looks like a devil.
Oh.
And he's dancing to this like creepy blues music, and the thing looked like it was alive, man. It was not just like a marionette. It was moving like a human.
This is supposed to be entertaining?
Yeah, it was scaring the crap out of me.
Oh,
right?
man.
I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is not good. This isn't good. So my son, who's just as neurotic as me, he gets up and he goes, "I don't want any part of this," and he walks away, right? So then the next thing, so he does his little dance and stuff. A huge old-timey clown face comes out from the stage.
Comes out of where?
Like from the back of the stage. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just this large face, like a cartoonish face.
Yeah.
And then the mouth starts moving, and it's singing this creepy song.
Was there somebody in this thing?
Yeah, like somebody was manipulating the mouth from behind stage, and then balloons started shooting out of the mouth, like shooting through the air like a missile.
This isn't a nightmare that you had?
It scared the living crap out of me. I said, I don't want any part of this ever, and we all got up and left.
Speaking of demonic
I don't even know what it was supposed to be.
Incidences, that sounds awfully scary to me. And how they would think children would find that entertaining.
I don't know, but there were kids crying.
It's traumatizing now.
Kids going out, they were crying, and the parents were picking them up and running away.
How many kids were up all night last night after having visions of this?
I was almost up all night after seeing this. So this man, this gentleman is obviously this is his business. This is what he does. And he's just, I don't know if he's intentionally creepy or just, it's just
we gotta consequence. We got to get this guy's information. We will have a...
you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find a picture of this guy, and I will put it on our website, because I want everyone to see, and he got some free publicity out of it, I suppose.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that either, man.
No,
tell you what,
it was just not good.
Wow, that's frightening.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else is frightening? This is our 6th episode.
Yes.
And, I feel like we're going to continue on with this. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's going very well.
I enjoy it.
You know what I enjoy the most out of this whole process is hearing from our listeners. We do get messages on occasion, and they're usually positive, which is good.
You know what you should reiterate, because we haven't had a winner yet.
Well, no, we haven't. As a matter of fact, so we want to give the contest again. So I've self-published a book because the major publishing houses have not seen clear to publish me formally.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either, but I did publish it several years ago, and it's called Big Todd, The House of Eyes, and Growing Up Scared in New England, which is a long title, but you can find it on Amazon. You can just look up my name, and it's on there too.
And it fits within everybody's budget, I believe.
It fits within everyone's budget. You can get it on Kindle for $2.99.
Oh.
And the printed copy is a little bit more. But we are giving away an autographed, personalized autograph copy of my book to a random a random listener who emails the show and explains why they love our show.
Yes.
So all you have to do to enter this contest is send an email to TheEoNProject@yahoo.com. That's TheEoNProject
at Yahoo.
yahoo.com.
There you go. Yep.
Thank you. I got it out.
Yep.
And then we will randomly select an entry and send you, free of charge, a personalized autographed copy of my book.
Who doesn't like something free?
I like free things.
I mean, it's free. It doesn't take much time out of your day. Everybody has email on your phone.
Everybody has email.
Go on your phone.
To do.
This is an ego fluff for us here.
Of course.
Make us feel good about what we're doing, even if you don't think it's good.
No, send us a message whether you like the show, you don't like the show, what we can improve on. If you have a guest request, show request, we're gonna. now that we have the technology upgrade, we're going to be having more guests on the program.
Yeah, we did.
It's going to be wonderful.
We did. We upgraded some technology. That's why we were able to take that phone call today.
Which was great. And want to say thank you to Pan Man for a very interesting interview.
Absolutely. And we'll be doing more telephonic interviews, and we'll have in-studio guests as well coming up soon. So if you enjoy it, please spread the word. We want to spread it through all the countries in the world.
Like a virus.
We have no listeners in Africa yet, which we're hoping to get.
I would love to have a listener in Africa.
That'd be cool. Maybe
Serengeti.
Nairobi,
Kenya.
Burundi, perhaps.
Liberia.
Maybe the Congo.
The Ivory Coast. That's still a place?
It is.
Oh.
So, so next week, next time we're going to have another exciting and interesting topic that we can spur discussion about.
Right.
And it'll be fun, and the adventures will continue. So just remember, the truth exists. Believe it.